Tony Fats kicked Hamster mercilessly, forcing him to flounder in the mud. Each time their friend tried to get up, Tony attacked, keeping him on his hands and knees. You don't come to my town and steal my girl, Tony Fats bellowed. You don't know who you're messing with. Leave him alone, Tony, Bess demanded. Tony's face twisted into a demented smile. I've got to teach your friend here how we do it in a big city. He lifted his leg to deliver another nasty kick. This time, Hamster caught it. He pulled hard and Tony Fats fell onto his back. Hamster leaped onto him and the two men wrestled for dominance. Then, all at once, Sabrina saw a magic wand appear in Tony Fats' hand. Hamster, look out! Candace roared. Mr. Hamster must have spotted the wand himself as he set his elbow into Tony's gut. The fairy godfather let out a wheeze and dropped the wand, but then scampered to get it back. Hamster was right on top of him, and the two fought for control over the weapon. They rolled around in the mud, struggling viciously, but just as Mr. Hamster gained the upper hand, a transformation came over him. His arms and legs suddenly shrank into stubby, hoofed feet. His clothes disappeared and his pink skin blanched to white. His ears migrated up his head and turned to the furry points. In a matter of seconds, Mr. Hamster's true form was revealed. He was a pig, but he was a pig with a magic wand in his snout. He flicked his head in a circle and a beam of magic shot out of the starry tip. It hit Tony Fats. There was a puff of smoke, and when it disappeared, the big fairy godfather was gone, replaced with a beady-eyed rat. The rat twittered, sized up the enormous pig hovering over him, shrieked, and then raced off, disappearing over the hill. I told you so, Mr. Candace mumbled. Sabrina nodded. She had to admit Mr. Hamster was a lot more resourceful than she had ever given him credit for being. Daphne raced to the enormous pig and gave him a big hug around the neck. I'm so proud of you, Mr. Hamster, the little girl said. Honey? A voice said from behind them. The pig looked up and Sabrina followed his gaze. Bess was standing there, looking confused and shocked. Ernie, you are... Pig. Mr. Hamster had suddenly morphed back to his human form. He looked as if he wanted to be a million miles away. I'm a pig, Bess. One of 3 little pigs. I should have told you. It wasn't fair. I'm sorry. Hamster turned abruptly, pushed his way through the crowd, and disappeared. Oh, honey, Bess cried after him, but he was gone. We should go get him, Daphne said to her grandmother. No, Liebling, Granny said sadly. He needs some time to himself. When they got back to the hotel, Mr. Candace decided to meditate while they waited for Hamster to show up. The old man was sure the traffic out of town would test his temper. Granny bought a suitcase that could pack the few things the family had purchased during their stay in the city. While they packed, they enjoyed a big lunch, compliments of room service. Puck, who had come to see them off, spent most of the afternoon talking to the numerous pixies who visited at the hotel window. He gave them several orders and answered their questions, and then he raced off to do his bidding. King Puck was already hard at work. Sabrina slipped into the bathroom for more privacy. She washed her face, brushed her teeth, and studied herself in the mirror. She had her father's golden hair and blue eyes, but her face was Veronica's. She knew when she was older she would look a lot like her mother. But as her mother's features stared back at her, she wondered why she had gotten more of her mother's spirit. Why had Veronica chosen to take on the family responsibility? Why had she chosen such a dangerous life? If only Veronica were awake and Sabrina could ask her. She took her mother's pink wallet out of her pocket and opened it. Inside was the picture of Veronica, Sabrina, and Daphne. Next to it, as the business card for her mother's best friend. Next to it was the business card for her mother's best friend, Oz Diggs, also known as the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, a man who claimed to know her better than anyone. And suddenly, Sabrina had an idea. She burst out of the bathroom and found Daphne and Puck finishing off 3 huge hot fudge sundaes. I want to talk to Oz, Sabrina said to her grandmother. Sabrina, we should get back on the road as soon as rush hour is over. I thought you wanted to get back home so you could help wake up your mother and father, Granny said. This is about my mother and father, Sabrina said. Please, I need to ask him some questions. I need to understand my mother. Sabrina, Daphne, Granny Rhoda, and Puck took a taxi down to 34th Street. It was evening by the time they reached Macy's, and there was a steady stream of exhausted shoppers flooding out the doors, but the family managed to squirm their way inside. The store security guard blocked their path. Frowned and tapped his watch. Christmas Eve, folks. We're closing in 5 minutes. We're not buying anything. We're looking for the wizard, Sabrina said. The who? We're looking for Mr. Diggs, Granny interrupted. He's probably in his workroom, the guard grumbled. Just don't dilly-dally, all right? Some of us would like to go home. They found Oz's workroom. Sabrina knocked once and waited patiently for several minutes, but no one answered. Come on, Puck said as he opened the door and pushed Sabrina inside. Children, we are intruding, Granny worried. He might be in the back and can't hear us, Daphne said, pulling the old woman inside. The room was as big of a mess as the first time they had seen it. Several tables had pots on them that were still moving, including a head that kept opening its eyes and lifting its brows in surprise. Tools were scattered around the room. Some of them seemed to have permanent homes on the floor. Oh, do you smell that? Puck asked. No, what are you talking about? Sabrina said defensively. She thought the cocoon smell had finally faded, but worried that maybe she was just getting used to it. Hard work. I smell hard work in here. It's horrible, Puck said as he picked up a circuit board and examined it. I might gag. Oz? Sabrina called out, but there was no answer, only the buzz of electric engines. Oz, I want to ask you about my mother. Perhaps we should sit and wait for him, Granny said. Sabrina hoped the security guards wouldn't lock them inside, but she took her grandmother's advice and sat down on a stool. When Daphne did the same, a robotic head that was sitting on a table next to her sprang to life and started giggling. The little girl screamed and snatched a hammer off the table and smacked the head a couple times until it stopped laughing. Relax, Sabrina said. You taught him a lesson, did you, Marshmallow? Puck said as he took the hammer from the little girl. He hit the head himself for good measure and scanned the room for something else to beat on. After a while, he sat down and started peeking through a stack of papers on his desk. Don't snoop, Granny Rhoda scolded. And someone better keep me entertained because this is boring, Puck replied. Sabrina gulped and took the papers away from the fairy. This is his stuff. Some of it might be private. She tried to collect them in a neat stack, but shoved in the middle of the pile was something quite different. A small leather-bound journal with gold writing on its cover. Fairy Tale Accounts, June 1992 to present. Veronica Grimm. Sabrina felt her heart rocking in her chest. With trembling fingers, she picked up the book and opened it. What did you find? Granny Rhoda said. It's my mother's journal, Sabrina replied. Veronica's curvy, slightly sloppy script filled every page. There were hundreds of entries chronicling her experiences through the ever-afters of both Ferryport Landing and New York City. Sabrina read feverishly, turning pages faster and faster, absorbing as much as she could about her mother's secret life. There was story after story of the life she had changed. She had helped people move, find jobs, and track them down missing friends, and she had done plenty of detective work as well. On one of the pages she wrote, My work with these people is exciting, fascinating, and most of all, important. I found that there is more to being a Grimm than Henry ever told me. It's more than being a detective. Sometimes I'm the only hope an ever after has of making it in this world. If only I could get them to work together. Sabrina flipped to the back and found several folded pages from a yellow legal pad covered with writing. She read through them, including all the scratched out parts and tiny notes in the margins. It was a speech. This is the speech everyone was talking about. It was her plan for the ever afters. She was supposed to give it the day she disappeared, Sabrina said. Then what is Oz doing with it? Daphne asked, taking the journal from her sister. Granny gulped from her chair. Lieblings, I think it will be wise of us too. A voice from the shadows cut her off. Oh, I wish you hadn't found that. Oz stepped into the light. Your mother was a remarkable woman, Sabrina. She had a charisma that was almost, well, supernatural. She could convince people to do anything she wanted. It was a talent I always envied. Your mother collected an army of supporters using only her smile. And I was one of them. I loved the little adventures we used to get into. She was part saint, part detective, and for a long time I thought I wanted to be like her. But then I would come to work every day and have my boss criticize the displays. I'd go home to my little apartment in Queens and spend the rest of my time holding the hand of King Oberon. And it dawned on me that my life had taken a turn for the worse. I used to be the great and terrible Oz. I was the ruler of an entire nation. People feared me. What had happened? You're talking in circles, wizard, Puck said, drawing his wooden sword from a loop around his waist. Kids, they always want the short version. Fine. One day, I was approached by a man who offered me something more. He promised me that there would come a day when the city would need a leader to rule both ever after and human alike. So I signed up to be a member of the Scarlet Hand. Sabrina gasped. Then you killed Baron. You put a mark on his chest. Oh no, Moth killed him. I just took advantage of the situation in order to announce the coming of my master's army. I put the mark on Baron's chest when I found him dead and escaped just before his body was discovered. I'm no murderer. But you are a kidnapper. How else would you have my mother's journal? It was part of my deal with the master, Sabrina. In exchange for your parents, I get to rule the city. And how do you plan on doing that? Puck asked. Why, by taking over the world, he said. The master is attempting nothing short of world domination, and not a minute too soon either. The humans have had control for long enough. Look at what they've done with their time. The world is a cesspool of pollution, hate, and greed. It's time for the ever afters to start running the show. And Henry and Veronica were in the way, Grandrhoda said. I'm not proud of what I've done, but unfortunately, yes. Veronica was a brilliant, insightful woman with big ideas. She wanted to unite this city under one government. She actually thought these fools could work together. I couldn't allow that. I had to keep this community in chaos until I can claim the city as mine. An organized population of ever afters will be difficult to topple. So you kidnapped my mom and dad. You put them to sleep, Daphne cried. Yes, to the first. No, to the second. I lured them out, promising your mother I would help her with her speech, encouraging her to reveal her double life to your father. Once I had them, I turned them over to the master. I had no idea they were still alive until you arrived here. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, and the lights went off in the building. The security guards were closing the store. Now, about that book. There's a speech inside that I need to get back. You can keep the journal, but no one can ever hear Veronica's speech. You and your family can go back to Fairyport Landing. Your mother and father's usefulness to the master is over, and as long as you stay out of the way, you'll live. Not a bad chance. Not a bad trade. No chance, Sabrina said. The wizard reached into his pocket and removed his small silver remote. And so be it. He pushed the button, and at once every little robot had turned toward them with electrical eyes blazing. The machines that could move charged them, some dragging half-assembled bodies. Puck swatted a few away with his wooden sword, but one of the mechanical. That seems to be the end of this video. I'll send more later. Goodbye.